Hello everyone, welcome and thank you so much for joining. You're tuned into Biomimicry Online Live, episode 10. My name is Roger, founder of the Expedition Project, and we're going to be joined by Sue Swain in a minute. She's the founder of a fantastic organization called Biowise. And Sue Swain and myself have been developing a fantastic series of modules as part of Biomimicry Online, a really innovative course looking at the concepts of biomimicry, but we're doing it in a slightly different way. So we're going to get into that in a minute, but let's just bring you up to speed in case this is your first time joining us. So as I mentioned, this is episode 10, and what we're doing is we're gradually going through the modules that are covered in Biomimicry Online and giving you a sneak preview, sneak snippets, and starting to get the conversation started. So we started with the first module way back 10 episodes ago, and that was the sort of introduction into the concept of biomimicry and how we're looking at it as part of this course, and we've slowly been working through module by module. But as this might be the first time for some of you joining, we thought we'd take a little step back just to introduce what the concept of biomimicry is. And then after introducing that, let's get Sue onto the screen and we can get started with the topic for tonight. So just to give you a bit of a concept background, let's have a look at this. Check out this video.
Imagine an experience that ignites the same spirit of adventure and pursuit of discovery as exploring the outer limits of space, but where the adventure lies not beyond our galaxy, but right here in exploring the extraordinary diversity and hidden depths of this planet. An experience that reveals how nature is a vast library of ingenuity we can learn from. A library filled with proven, real solutions for all our human development and sustainability challenges. Solutions based on the billions of years of research and development by the natural world's designers, architects, engineers, and scientists. This is the science of biomimicry, the practice of learning from and emulating nature's genius. Biomimicry is at the forefront of innovation. It is the next revolution, the natural revolution. Now, imagine the place that brings all this to life, that showcases and fuels this natural revolution. A place that brings the same kind of enchantment, thrills and magic to the world as Disney intended, but where the wonder does not lie in the realm of make-believe, but in the reality of nature's genius and the value of this genius to us.
Hi, Sue. Thank you so much for joining again. Welcome back. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Roger. Lovely to see you again, and welcome to everyone who's tuned in.
Yes, thank you. So thank you once again to everyone who has tuned in. If you're watching this on replay, obviously still get involved by commenting wherever you are watching this from. It could be Facebook, it could be on the Expedition Project website. But yeah, just get the conversation started. Let us know what you think. Send in some questions. We can get back to you, even if it is after this is aired live. But for all you live viewers, thank you so much again. The idea is to go through a different sort of topic based on some of the modules that we've been running so far, and for you to ask questions. So if there's anything particular you want to ask about these topics that we're talking about, or anything about biomimicry, then Sue, I know, would love to take some of your questions. So do get involved as much as possible. So Sue, episode 10, we're part 2 of the Learning from Life module, which is module 5 of Biomimicry Online. Fantastic module. So moving into part 2, this one, a couple of the lessons we're going to highlight today. One of them is all on resourcefulness. Do you want to give that a bit of a sort of introduction?
Sure. I think the context is really quite key, and the question really being, well, why is life on Earth resourceful? Why is there that need? And of course, it relates to the Earth's operating condition of being a closed system planet. So what we have is what we've got. Therefore, you need to work resourcefully with what is on board Spaceship Earth. So really, it's highlighting how the diversity of life on Earth is doing just that. And so that's really the context. And of course, that one video intro which showed very much biomimicry as an approach to design and innovation, and that's the traditional approach to biomimicry. And of course, what we're trying with our Biomimicry online course is biomimicry more as a way of being, where reconnecting with, learning from, and emulating nature is part of our daily life. So I think it's quite exciting to be distilling lessons from nature in how to be resourceful.
And with so much about what the Expedition Project does, and exactly the same as what Sue does at Biowise, is, we like to complement all the other things out there and amplify all the other good messages out there. So there are other amazing biomimicry courses out there, to get involved with. We're just a complementary one, I suppose. It's really just adding to the conversation and looking at it in a different way, like you just said, right?
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. That's exactly it. We didn't want to do something that was almost senseless competition. There are some great online courses that specifically focus on biomimicry as an approach to design and innovation, the methodology and all of that. So that's why we thought, well, let's make this more for just everyone out there. So including designers, engineers, architects, etc., but also just for any person who feels the need to live life differently, who feels the disconnect that we have imposed or created for ourselves with nature, that we're disconnected from nature, and how can we kind of gain that reconnection again.
Yeah. So if you've missed the previous episode, the previous nights, go back and watch them, because they very quick sort of half an hour episodes, and we delve into some of the topics, just to give you a bit of a taster. And then the idea is for you to obviously go and learn more by taking up the modules, the biomimicry modules, which are available individually, but obviously we want you to work through them, systematically and chronologically, so you can get the full grasp of all these things that Sue's speaking about, which are some fantastic and fascinating sort of topics. So let's get started with the first little video. So we've got a clip from the resourcefulness lesson. In particular, tonight is just looking at a couple of sort of wildlife examples, actually, which is really fascinating. So let's play this video and then we can talk about it. So check this out.
We already touched on the ingenuity of zebras, but let's look again, this time focusing on discovering the principles behind the ingenuity. So that built-in air conditioning unit that runs on the interplay of light and dark colors absorbing and reflecting heat, that's an example of tapping into physics to help him cool without requiring any extra energy from himself. And those additional design features of the stripes that not only confuse predators, that not only regulate temperature, but also help to repel biting insects, that's an example of incorporating multifunctionality into all you do, to ensure that you get more bang for your buck, that you get more out of what you put in. And also that strategy of growing insulating cells only under the dark stripes, the ones that get hot, and not putting insulating material under the light stripes that stay naturally cool, that's an example of dematerialization. it takes energy to make materials, so why waste energy on producing materials that aren't necessary?
Absolutely. So in that like short little minute clip, I mean, you covered so much actually just in that short thing, and especially like the comic more bang for your buck. So fantastic. I mean, we're talking about just being, just so resourceful in so many different ways, and so clever, and how it's, the whole thing's just evolved. I don't know. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
I know Biomimicry 3.8, they're really the leaders in the practice of biomimicry. They speak of nature, always being resource and energy efficient. And, something like the zebra, it's just so well encapsulated within that. And, it's also to see that nature doesn't just do one of the things, they're incorporating a whole lot of solutions. But interestingly enough, as is our own human body, I mean, that dematerialization that we spoke about, where he's only putting, insulating cells or materials under the dark stripes, because it takes energy and materials to make, and resources rather, to produce materials. It makes sense not to do that. But our own human bodies are an example of that. If you look at our skeleton, we're not a solid skeleton. We have bone and thicker bones where there are stresses, and we have gaps where they're not stresses. So, and that is one of the reasons why we can walk around as freely as we are. Otherwise, our skeleton would just be too heavy as well, and would take too much energy to move around, and we wouldn't be able to resist the force of gravity and all of that. So, yeah, it's really fascinating when you start to delve into things and start to see just how resourceful nature is. And that first principle that was mentioned about tapping into freely available physics, it does appear that nature kind of turns to physics first and foremost to solve many of its design and sustainability challenges, as opposed to chemistry, although chemistry is part and parcel, of course, of life. But where physics can do the job, they'll turn to that first, which really makes sense because they're tapping into freely, readily available energy sources, or rather physics that's just existing there. So it's freely available for us to tap into. So why don't we? Why do we rather go and tap into, fossil fuels and things like that?
So, I mean, for those of you that want to go and learn more about this, Sue goes into, there's several other examples in this lesson alone. The zebra was just one amazing example. And, I know, where Sue's from on the garden route, and where I'm from in Cape Town and everything, as South Africans, zebra is so iconic. So it was such a nice example to sort of use for us. And it's just absolutely love it. For those of you that missed the last episode, that was part one of this learning from life module that we've been talking about. So go back and watch that so you can get the context that Sue was talking about as well. There is a little bit more context and background and everything in that episode. And now on this one, where, as I mentioned, we're talking about the resourcefulness and the resilience of nature. So yeah, absolutely amazing. As I said, go and look at those other examples. And yeah, any comments or questions, send them in. So the next section we wanted to look at, Sue, is all about resilience. So with that in mind, we've got another wildlife example. So should I play that video and then we can talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, should I maybe just give the context again? So the operating condition that this lesson relates to is the fact that we're a dynamic planet, that change is a given, it's a constant. And therefore, if resilience is all about being able to maintain functioning in the face of change. So that's just setting the scene for you guys. And with that, maybe you can then show the clip.
Perfect. So we've done resourcefulness. Let's have a look at resilience, and once again, a couple of wildlife examples for you. So check this out. Have a look at this.
Now, life simply doesn't waste any energy or time on resisting change. Instead, life adapts to change and does so in fascinating ways. Like the Arctic fox, for instance, who in the snow-free summer months grows this beautiful rich brown coat. But then in the shoulder season, when colors in the landscape are a patchy mix of white, browns, and grays, he develops a suitably mottled coat. And then in the snowy winter months, he grows this brilliant white coat, obviously responding to the seasonal changes in colors in the landscape to ensure that it can be camouflaged throughout the year. Then we have the white-crowned sparrow, who lives in and around San Francisco. And he has a very distinctive call that he has been able to change in response to changing conditions. Climate change has caused the vegetation in the Central Valley of California to change from grassland to scrubland. And in response, the birds living there have lowered their song pitch to be able to penetrate the scrub, while those of them living in the cities have changed theirs to a higher pitch so that they can still hear each other above the increasing traffic noise. How's that for adapting to changing conditions and being able to fit into and integrate change in the surrounding environment?
How's that indeed? And so many other examples, in those lessons as well. So do go and check it out. Sue, do you want to talk a bit more about that?
It's nice that you selected some of the Northern Hemisphere examples for those listening in from the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah, I think, it's just incredibly humbling to see how the resourcefulness in nature in learning to be resilient kind of thing, And I mean, isn't that marvelous with that Arctic fox just changing his coat to completely match the surroundings? So there's that awareness of when that change is happening and being able to adapt and respond accordingly, which is really, really important. And yeah, that example of the white-crowned sparrow, it's really quite sad, I guess, in a way that they're being forced to have to adapt maybe a lot more quickly. The problem is that the climate change that is human induced is happening at a much faster time and rate than would ever happen in natural cycles. And hats off to that bird that has been able to adapt. I mean, and it's simply brilliant, that strategy, where those living in that area have the lower pitch, and those ones with the, struggling against traffic noise have increased their pitch. But what of those that aren't able to adapt that quickly? That's the concern. So it should never, the fact that nature is adaptable and is able to do these kind of things shouldn't be used as an excuse for us just to continue doing what we're doing, It's really about learning to live in sync with the rest of life on Earth and understand that life has never, ever tapped into fossil fuels and things like that. But I'm going off topic, as I so often do. But yes, so that resilience is very much about being able to adapt to changing conditions. But other examples include, for instance, incorporating diversity. Those who've listened to previous ones will know that this is one of my pet phrases, which is that, diversity is nature's insurance policy, especially functional diversity, which is really important within ecosystems. They need to be able to ensure that a function that is being provided in a system can always continue, even if species get negatively impacted in that. And other examples are like self-healing. Being able to self-heal is an example of resilience. And there again, that lovely comment by Janine Benyus, who wrote the book on biomimicry, that said, our human bodies are perfectly adapted to this planet. It's just our behavior that's maladapted. And, just like the rhino can grow a new horn, the same thing, what is a scab on our skin? If we can't, it's self-healing. And we also shed our skin cells all the time so as to be able to actually generate new ones. It's all examples of resilience. And of course, just having an immune system within our own bodies that actually have different organs that actually duplicate functions and things like that, which means one can live without one kidney, etc. So yeah, just again to point out that what we're trying to do is actually take lessons from life to influence how we behave. That's really what biomimicry is about, and especially biomimicry as a way of being, is how can we better learn to live in right relationship with life on Earth by living in sync, by living by means of the same principles, which we see being played out in natural systems and that. But it's also very much about living in rich relationship. Also, just reconnecting and starting to see the life around us again.
I'm so glad you brought in some human examples, because I was just about to ask, what are some of those examples of resourcefulness and resilience, within us as as our species. And there are so many, as you say. It's just the behavior that's gone skewed. Our resilience and resourcefulness is still just amazingly fascinating on its own. And we've spoken about a couple of wildlife examples, but as you mentioned, biomimicry as a way of being, and the biomimicry online course that we've developed, it's all about that behavior shift, just giving you the links to some examples out there and giving you what we can look to as almost learning tools. Is that would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. And so taking an example from that to how we grow food, if we start doing it on a very decentralized scale, as in growing food, in whatever patch of land or garden you might have. They say you can feed a family virtually on a patch of earth that's the size of a door. But the real secret to that is taking life's lessons and incorporating diversity, not having monocultures, but having polycultures, a diversity of species that you plant and that they grow together. Permaculture and syntropic agriculture and all of those are starting to apply those kind of principles. Not starting, I mean, that is what they're based on, is applying those principles and patterns that you actually see in nature to how we then do things, how we grow food, how we do whatever, get around, transport, all of that, yeah.
So just to round up the section, we've just got a really nice slide to show you. And let me just remove the at the bottom so you can see that. There we go. So, this energy-free physics that Sue's been speaking about. So once again, this module in particular about learning from life just goes into so many examples. But here's just 5, amazing examples of wildlife species out there that are just doing things so amazingly, and we probably just take them for granted so much. So there's just such a host of examples out there just everywhere you go. And one of the previous live streams that we did, and I do recommend anyone goes back and sort of watches them and checks them out if you've got the time. It's just noticing those small things. Even as Sue mentioned before, just a weed finding a way to come through a pavement crack or something like that. It's just, there is so much resilience out there. It's just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. And yeah, no, sorry. I recently, somebody pointed me in the direction of mimicry that happens in nature. So now this isn't biomimicry, but this is where an organism mimics another in order to get maybe the protection that a species that is poisonous or something often warns. They warn birds. So ladybird, for instance, is red and black because it's warning birds that it is actually really bitter. So don't bother to actually, try and eat us. And I just recently discovered here on the farm what I've never heard of it and never seen it before, this pink lady beetle spider. And it actually mimics the coloring of a ladybird. And so then the birds don't go and attack that spider. Meanwhile, he's not noxious or bitter tasting or anything, It's just, but you start to think, where does that mimicry, how does it happen? When you start really looking at that, you just realize how extraordinary, how these relationships and strategies have evolved over millions of years. But it's incredible where and how it came about, and it's just a part of biomimicry as a way of being is developing that sense of awe and wonder and reverence and just gee whiz, really giving it the time of day to think about it.
I mean, so yeah, for those of you just tuning in now, we're coming to the end of episode 10, which has been part 2 of looking at the Learning from Life module, which is module number 5 of Biomimicry Online. So far we've gone through biomimicry as a way of being, which is module number 1. Module number 2 is all about rediscovering the planet. So just looking at more into the context side of things. Then reconnecting with self. So if you go back and watch some of these online sort of live streams, really interesting, because it's what we're talking about, and what Sue mentioned is this is more of a behavior thing that we're trying to get across and using examples. So that module's fantastic for that. Reconnecting with fellow life on Earth, so loads of sort of examples in there. And then the module we've been talking about the last 2 live streams, which is Learning from Life, and as we went in today, the 2 fantastic examples from zebra and the Arctic fox. So really amazing. Sue, to round off tonight's live stream, I just wanted to bring attention to some amazing posts that you've been putting on your Facebook page recently, and it's all about the concept of we are nature. So all about how there are these similarities, which once again we go without sort of really noticing. So the slide that I've just brought up now, and I'll show another one in a second. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about these.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's really important because sometimes, when we say reconnecting with nature, we're almost implying implying that we are separate from nature. And that isn't the case. We truly are nature, part of nature. So I actually normally prefer to say reconnecting with, fellow living beings, fellow life on Earth. So that we start to understand. And if you see that the rings of the tree and our fingerprints, how similar they are. Then you go to the lungs, we exhibit the same kind of branching that is happening in our lungs is happening in how trees branch. There's a thing called Murray's Law. But of course, this all was happening before Murray's Law came along. But yeah, so just to open ourselves up to actually starting to see just how much we are part and parcel of this, fellow life on Earth, of this community of life on Earth, and what a fantastic planetary home we have. So the whole course is really designed to take people on a journey of deepening understanding, a journey of discovery that really makes you understand more and appreciate more what our planet has gone through to make it possible for life to thrive here in the first place and be the only one in this whole universe that is known to sustain life. And then into a reviewing and a revaluing of life on Earth. That's really what biomimicry does, because it suddenly helps you to start seeing, that we're surrounded by engineers and architects and designers who do things so much more elegantly and simply than we do, but so much more effectively. And, if we can just tap into the humility to really learn from them, then we could do truly extraordinary things. And I think the key always with biomimicry, though, is that ethos. And the ethos is that life creates conditions conducive to life. And the secret to thriving on Earth is for us to learn how to do that. How can we meet our own needs while meeting and contributing to the well-being of everyone around us, of every living being around us?
So eloquently put. No, absolutely amazing. Sue, so two more things to cover before we wrap for tonight. We'll come into today's takeaway and final sort of takeaway for tonight. But before that, I know you've got an event coming up this weekend, and if anyone's in the area, it'd be, I'm sure you'd love them to join. Do you want to tell everyone about that?
Absolutely, thanks. And also it's Mother's Day on Sunday in South Africa here. So for all those mothers of children, mothers of animals, mothers of nature, earth, why not spoil yourself, and just come and have a deep immersion experience. So what's been fascinating is this year in particular, collaboration and partnerships is how things work in nature. And it seems to be how things are starting to flow with in terms of the forest immersion experience that I offer, but teaming up with somebody else. I've teamed up with a friend who is a yoga practitioner, teamed up with another friend who is an environmentalist, but a fantastic artist as well, to do our rewilding back to belonging. And then Deborah, in fact, came on one of my forest immersion experiences. And then she contacted me afterwards to say, well, she is a wellness coach. Could we look at offering something together? And that our combined skills, expertise, and passions are shared in one really lekker, lovely, lekker, not everyone will understand that one, one really great session. So I do hope if somebody's around, join us for a 3 to 4 hour session deep in the heart of the Knysna forests.
Nice, lovely. And for those of you that won't be able to make this and don't know what Sue's talking about, maybe Knysna Forest is an absolutely beautiful part of the garden route, and the garden route in South Africa is called the garden route because it is so lush and it is very green. And lekker is a South African sort of slang word that just means very nice and really nice. So yeah, just a bit of background for everyone watching that's not South African. So Sue, today's takeaway. What as usual, we like to finish off each of these live streams with just maybe one thing that everyone can take away from the message that you're saying. So what would you say from the Learning from Life Part 2 that we've been speaking about tonight?
I think really is, taking those concepts of resourcefulness and resilience, applying them to realizing they apply to our planet and how our planet functions, the fact that it is this closed system and the fact that it is a dynamic system. And then start to really just chew on that, look at how you are living your life and in what ways are you being resourceful? Are you using the least amount of materials and energy to get the job done well? And is there room for improvement? Do you find yourself resisting change or adapting to change? And how adaptable are you? And is that a strength that you can build on? So I think really it's more contemplative activity to really just think about some of the things that were said tonight, some of the images you saw, some of the examples provided, and start thinking how you could apply those in your lives.
Nice, amazing. So our next Biomimicry Online live episode will be 6 p.m. UK, 7 p.m. South African time, 2nd of June. We're starting to come to the end now of going through all of the some of the key topics from the modules that is part of Biomimicry Online. So this isn't an infinite amount of episodes. So do take advantage of it while you can and get involved. And if you're just getting into it now, go back and watch some of the episodes so that you can start to ask some questions when we do this. And we really want to get the conversation going and see what some of the thoughts are out there, so we know where to go next, and might find that we end up taking these live streams down a completely different route when we move into our second series, maybe, depending on what everyone wants out there. So yeah, just get involved as much as you can. Sue, thank you so much as always for joining in and tuning in tonight. Looking forward to chatting next time. And yeah, just thank you so much. Great to see you again.
Many thanks, Roger. Thanks for always putting together such a very beautiful program. I really much appreciate it, and always such a joy to chat with you. Thank you. And thanks to everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a fantastic evening, and we'll see you next time. See you all. Bye.
Bye.